Please welcome President of Michigan State University, Kevin Guskiewicz. President of University of Michigan, Santa Ono. President of Oakland University, or Hirsch Pescovitz. President of Ferris State University, Bill Pink. And to moderate the discussion, please welcome Political Director for Michigan Public, Zoe Clark.
Hi, everyone. So good to see everyone's faces. How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? There we go. I don't need to tell you all that we are in a really critical moment right now in our state, right? For educators, for our institutions, for employers, we are in a moment, and I want to get to that with four folks on this stage who think about that moment, who are living and breathing that moment every single day. But first, I want to particularly note the moment that we're in higher education in Michigan right now. And last year, we were sitting around at this on this stage, and there was an interim, and there was a sense of working together, right? But we now have some real stability in higher education right now in the state of Michigan. And so I want to welcome particularly President Guskiewicz. This is your first Mackinac.
It is, and it's incredible.
President of Michigan State University. Bill Pink, Santa Ona, your second years. And so we're actually seeing some institutional knowledge that's going to move forward in this state of Michigan. Congratulations. I think that's something to clap for.
Thank you.
So if you know me, I am a political junkie. I love all things State of the Union addresses, State of the States, particularly when the president says the state of our union is fill in the blank. So I'm going to throw that to you all. President Pink, I'm going to start with you. The state of talent in Michigan is?
If it's up to the institutions on this stage and the institutions across our state, it's in a good spot. Because with what we've been doing, especially on the backside of a pandemic and how our institutions have continued to move forward here in the state of Michigan, we were talking backstage about the fact that in my career, I started this back in 1900 and none of your business, but all the way up until now, over 30 years in this game, and I have never seen the value proposition of higher education so questioned across our country, yet at the same time, the production of our institutions being at the level that it is, post-pandemic, yet and still the institutions that I am honored to work with, including mine, continue to do the work in providing a workforce for our state and for surrounding. At our institution, we always celebrate the fact of having 92% of our graduates at Ferris State that stay in the state of Michigan and make a difference in the state of Michigan. And so to me, and I know I have colleagues that have many of the same stories, I feel awfully confident of what we look like. We just have to make sure we're getting that message out. I don't know if we do the best job of getting the message out of just what that value proposition truly is.
And we're going to dig into that, but what I'm hearing is the state of talent is confidence from you. President Pescovitz.
Well, if it's one word answer, I would say it's encouraging, but we have a lot more to do.
Which we're going to get into. President Ono.
I would say the talent production from the universities and community colleges is exceptional. It's not well known that of the 1.7 million graduates from the universities within the URC, that about 800,000 of them are in Michigan. So we are one of the largest generators of talent in the STEM fields as well as the health fields, the number one in the health fields. We have more graduates than Massachusetts, North Carolina, Northern or Southern California on an annual basis. So the talent production from our higher education sector is really impressive.
President Guskiewicz.
I would agree. I think it's about attracting that talent, and we have to be thinking forward. What is it that's going to, as we prepare students and graduates for jobs and careers of the future? This year's graduates, they graduated in 2024, but they're going to be retiring from their careers in the year 2074, perhaps. What jobs and careers are going to exist then? And so we have to be thinking ahead about what will be needed for that future talent pool. And I think that's what each of our universities is trying to do right now.
Well, let's dig into what these institutions are doing. And President Ono, I want to start with you because you had a big announcement this morning. Tell us a little.
Yeah, with the Detroit Regional Chamber, we announced our joint planning for a corridor, an east-west corridor. And we're excited because, as you know, we've been investing big time into the city of Detroit, where the University of Michigan was founded. And so all in, we're going to be investing about $1 billion into economic development in the state in the form of the University of Michigan Center for Innovation in Detroit, but also plans for the North Campus in Ann Arbor as well. We're going to have research buildings there, as well as places for there to be interactions between venture capitalists, large Fortune 500 companies, as well as innovators in our institution and others. Mm.
President Ping, I want to look to you because we've talked a lot about this, about making sure that the talent is going to be ready for the jobs of the future. How are you thinking about that? Whether it's not jobs next year that we're thinking about, right? It's jobs 5, 10 years down the line.
Yeah, for us at Ferris State, and I know a lot of my colleagues are the same way, a couple of things. One thing that we really are focusing more on at Ferris State, the idea of exposure. So we have so many students that come our way from different parts of the state, and from their experience, the idea of exposure, there are many programs on our campus they have no clue about. They didn't know they had a job to do that. When they look at our Michigan College of Optometry, oh, you mean I can actually come here and I can learn how to actually make those glasses and truly prescribe those kind of lens to people. Exposure is so important. So from what we're doing, what we're trying to focus more on is how do we work with our companies that are our partners, and we have many of them across the state. How do we work with our companies and our K-12 partners to do more to help expose those students to what the possibilities are? You don't know what you don't know. I always like to tell the story that several years ago when I was back in 1900, none of your business, when I was working on my doctorate degree, and one of the research pieces we looked at was the fact of asking middle school kids in an urban setting, what is it you want to be when you grow up? Many of them said, I want to be a 7-Eleven worker, aside from being an NBA basketball player and all those things. Why do you want to be a 7-Eleven worker? Well, because when I go to 7-Eleven in my neighborhood, that person has a uniform on, and that person's handling money. Exposure. That's all they had seen when it came to, oh my goodness, that looked impressive. We have got to pull more students in our communities, rural and urban, more students into those opportunities. And the way that happens is working with our industry partners so that we can understand what today and tomorrow of the world of work can look like. But if they don't know it, they'll never be it.
President Pescovitz, how does that resonate with you? This idea that this world that you're teaching students about, how do you see that being the role? It's not just educating, right? But it's educating about the world outside of your institutions.
Yeah, well, I think we maybe want to go back and think about the poll that we just heard about and we've been hearing about all week. And I think one of the things is it's not just the students, but I think we have to educate the public. And I want to address that because I think it's so important. We've been hearing all week. Sandy, you've reported on it now several times. And I think it's really important that we dispel the myths of that poll because the public, when they hear about that, they hear that college is not important. It's not necessary for jobs. Let's dispel that. Here in Michigan, 37 of the 50 hottest jobs of the future you're asking about require a 4-year degree from one of our institutions. And that's not just important for the student, that's important for the businesses, and that's important for the economy. So the jobs of the future require that our students graduate from one of our institutions. And that's essential. That's the fact. And when they graduate from our institutions, they are going to earn an income which is substantially higher over the course of their lifetimes than if they had one of those uniforms and didn't go to our institutions. That's right. In addition, I think it's important to dispel the myth that college is unaffordable, because they're thinking about not our institutions where the average tuition is $16,000 a year, but they need to know that if they come to Oakland or any of our other institutions, if a family earns less than $70,000 a year this year, they will not pay any tuition at all. And they need to know that 57% of our students graduate with no debt. And if they do have debt, the average debt is $23,000, less than the cost of one of the cars that we're manufacturing here. And that the Wall Street Journal says that they will pay that debt back in less than 20 months because they're going to get a high-paying job at one of your businesses. So they need to understand that all those myths about college are false news, fake news. That's what we have to dispel.
Yeah.
And that's what's true about all of our institutions, whether it's our most premier institutions or our average institutions. Every one of our college graduates gets a great degree and a great future, and that's going to change not only the life of the individual student, not only the life of our industries, but also the change of our economy and our state.
I just wanted to say that I've been here for about 2 years. It's been a great 2 years, and I'm just so excited about what's happening. I often talk about Michigan as stars are aligning, and whether you're talking about the governor, the state legislature, the different communities and the mayors, business leaders of Michigan, the chamber, it's extraordinary how people are converging. There is an overall strategy that is emerging. You just heard the secretary talk about chips for science. You heard her say thousands of jobs are going to come here. And I'm excited because the universities are working together. The URC is working together. And we have a responsibility, and we can actually meet the demand for talent. And so, I think what's happening here is pretty remarkable. You heard her talk about the need for resources like water and energy. We have abundant natural resources. We're one of the top producers of talent required for these companies to migrate to Michigan. And so I'm pretty excited. And I think that in the near future, jobs are going to be coming into this state. And more of our sons and daughters are going to stay in the state of Michigan. And URC, what's happened over the past year is extraordinary. We rolled our sleeves up. We came up with a strategy. We're focusing on these things, and there's alignment. When you have that kind of thing happen, it's pretty special. Just like Mackinac, it's pretty special. People come together, have an aligned vision, and the future is bright for Michigan, I think.
So, President Guskiewicz, I want to talk a little bit about that messaging, because I think this goes directly back into the polling data that we got this week, that there is a disconnect between sort of this reality on the ground versus the perception. And we were seeing that in so many different dichotomies from this polling. So, President Guskiewicz, to you, how do you tell that story to get rid of that disconnect?
Yeah. So I think it's about accepting change and appreciating the need for change. I'm in week 13, but who's counting? And most of those 13 weeks have been out on a listening and learning tour, and not just on the campus over in East Lansing. I guess that would be down in East Lansing, but it's also been out talking to legislators. It's been talking to business leaders. It's been talking to our alumni. I'm proud that we have about 570,000 living Spartan alums, over 285,000 that live and work in the state of Michigan.
This is usually where someone yells, "Go green."
We got it. Thank you, Zoe, for doing it for me.
I'm helping you out. Week 14, you'll get
right.
it.
But I've been listening, and what I'm hearing is that we have to think about change. And a traditional engineering degree is likely not going to work for those future jobs. A traditional journalism degree is likely not going to work. And so one of the things I'm excited that we're doing is we're launching our new Engineering and Digital Innovation Center, which is bringing together our engineering college alongside computer science and arts and letters and our comm arts and journalism college. And social sciences, to think more holistically about how we prepare those future graduates so that they're prepared for the computational science needs, around cybersecurity needs, where you have to know how to communicate out what it is that you're trying to deliver on. And so that's what I've been doing. I think that the way that we dispel this, as Ora talked about, is to listen to what the needs are going to be for those future jobs. We access, in our case, those 280,000 Spartans that are out there working across the state of Michigan to create the Spartan career network that we have. We have to rely on them to help change that narrative for our current students and to recruit them into these industries. But they're going to be recruiting somebody who looks very different today as they graduate, so that they are ready, as I said earlier, as they're working toward retirement in 50 years from now, they're ready for those jobs. It's communication.
And President Pink, it's communication, and that it can look a lot of different ways, right? That this idea about a higher education future doesn't just mean 4 years in 4 years.
Well, and something that I want to double click on in referencing Sandy's op-ed from this week, the value proposition, one of the most frustrating things that I think that humans experience is when you hear something said about yourself that you say, well, wait a minute, that's not true. That's not who we are. That gets frustrating because you work so hard to ensure the true story. And so I think this is the same thing. I think it's an interesting moment for us, especially here in the state of Michigan, that I think we have to take a moment. I think about 12 months ago when our higher ed institutions, our public 4 years and our 2-year community colleges partnered with the Michigan College Access Network. And what we did was that we said, many people do not know about the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. My goodness, all the dollars that are available there, and they don't know about it. So MCAN and our public institutions partnered together. We all provided some dollars to say, you guys help us in getting the word out about this. So this whole conference, we're talking about partnership and how radical partnership. That's the kind of thing we have to look at now, our 4 institutions and our partners, is how is it that we band together in an iteration of that kind of partnership to say we've got to get that messaging out of what Sandy shared. We've got to get those data points out of what we know about what we do, the value proposition, if you will, so that we can have more of that public-facing information. I think it's one of the worst things that higher ed does, in my opinion. One of the worst things that we do not tell our story well enough. And we've got to tell those stories more. And that's what we have to, one of those band together kind of efforts that I think we have to make. I'd be more than committed to that.
Yeah, I'd like to just, I'm sorry. I didn't, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that I think it's in the title, Bridging the Future Together.
That's right.
I think that it's one thing to message it and communicate it, but there's nothing more convincing than seeing an institution moving close to you and seeing universities going into schools.
Yeah.
And if you look at things like the Michigander Scholars Program, 200 of our students and many more from the other institutions on this panel, they are investing in staying in Michigan. They're being incented to stay and work for companies in Michigan. Mm-hmm. So it's up to us as institutions to be that bridge, to be visible, to be seen, to wanting to work together. And that's why I'm so excited about URC. What we've accomplished this year is you're going to see Kevin and I together, and Ora and everybody else together, and Kimberly. And that's something that those optics speak louder than words. Being present, being there, being partners, and I think it's happening.
President Pescovitz, please jump in.
I was going to make a very similar point about the bridging the future together and the collaborations that we have, because many of the things, we're in a business where, in some ways, I'd like to use the term co-opetition. We collaborate on many things, and we compete on other things.
Yeah.
One of the areas where we compete, of course, we have a limited number of students in Michigan, and we have a declining population, and so we do compete for enrollment. Of course, the University of Michigan, where I spent 5.5 years as one of the executive vice presidents, is able to dial up and really get almost an unlimited number of students, because they can, they're a premier institution that can almost get as many students as they want. And the same is true for MSU as well. But really, for Ferris and for Oakland and the rest of the public institutions, that's not true. So we do compete for enrollment of students at the rest of the public institutions. But for the rest of what we do, we collaborate. And that's why I like to use the term co-opetition. And we do collaborate on many, many things that we do together. And that's why I love that, what we're doing here, Bridging the Future. And there are many examples of things that we collaborate on. And we collaborate with business and industry and government on many things. And Bill just mentioned one that we collaborated very well with government, and we're so delighted with the governor on the Michigan Achievement Scholarship Award. And to date, in 1 year, we can already identify that 28,000 students have received this scholarship, and we can point to the fact that enrollment at our institutions is already up, and we believe that we can attribute it to that. And I think we should really give ourselves and the governor and the state a round of applause for that.
That's right.
Because it's significant.
That's right.
Just taking off what Dr. Pescovitz just said, I think, again, talking about change and what's different today, many of us in the room here today probably graduated from college with a single major, with very little experiential education alongside that. That's what I think is a big difference today and what's needed so that we're preparing students as we bridge and move forward together. It's exposing students to the breadth across multiple disciplines. College should be about exploring and not locking in on a set major or any one major when you enter college. And I'm proud that we're really pushing that along at Michigan State. It's about graduating with a double major and a minor. Entrepreneurship, one of our fastest growing and most popular minors at Michigan State is our entrepreneurship and innovation minor, the Burgess Institute for Innovation Entrepreneurship. And 800 students now graduating with that minor. You can be a double major in engineering and music with a minor in entrepreneurship. We couldn't do that when most of us were in college. And then it's about the experiential education opportunities, study abroad. Proud that many of our students study abroad, get an internship experience. 78% of our Michigan State graduates get an internship opportunity and or a directed research experience. Those experiences are what are preparing those students for the real life experience that they're going to get when they graduate, and we need to continue to do that. And again, that's working with our alumni base to create some of those internship opportunities. And so again, it's just very different today, and I think that's what's going to allow universities like ours to not just survive but thrive. Students will want to be attracted and want to come to our universities.
So we've spent quite a bit of time talking about what it's like for students during their time on campus as students. I want to talk about what it means to keep them in this state, though, once they've graduated, when they're no longer students. President Pink and President Ono, I know this is something that you have been thinking a lot about with the Grow Michigan Together Council, about this idea of population growth. And you can graduate incredible talent, and then they go to Chicago. You can graduate incredible talent, and then they go to New York, or they go to to San Francisco and Silicon Valley. So I'm curious about what needs to happen among your institutions and what you can step up and do to help keep this talent after they've left your doors in this state. President Pink.
Yeah, well, one of those things is keeping them out of Ohio. But so the thing that we talked about in the council, and from our higher education working group that I was honored to work with Russ Cavaluna, president at Henry Ford, and co-chairing that higher ed working committee, one of the things that we pointed out of that very point is the fact that if we can do more in higher education in our state to connect our students to our great companies and businesses prior to graduation, that notion that I grew up on in my higher ed experience of you went to school, then the job, we've got to get rid of that kind of thinking. While you're going to school, we have to have some of those learning opportunities, those internships, those externships, those opportunities that our students are already becoming connected to great companies. Because if they can already make that connection while they're at our university with many of your companies, and we can expose them, there's that word again, expose them to great companies, and those companies be able to say, you know what, as you're finishing, boy, we'd love for you to come work here. That has such a strong staying power. And for us, when we're giving them multiple internship opportunities at various companies, all the better, because there becomes more of that choice perspective. So the more we can focus on getting them connected to incredible businesses that we have here in the state prior to graduation, to make those connections before they're done, we have a better opportunity to keep them here so that they understand what it means to stay in the state of Michigan.
So there's a second part to that. Part of it is internships with existing companies, and we have some wonderful companies that are already here. But many of our graduates, what they want to do is they want to start up companies.
That's right.
They want to be part of an innovation ecosystem. And that actually starts very early, well before they get to university. One of our strategies through the Maryville College initiative is to make them aware of all the exciting opportunities that are percolating. And so our investment in innovation at the University of Michigan is aligned with that educational outreach into the state. And then if they're involved in those sorts of activities, if they have an entrepreneurial, it's in the bug is with them, they and we actually create this platform that we announced today with the chamber. Then we recruit more of these startup companies to intentionally to innovation parks that we create, so that when they graduate, they're all excited about Michigan. That's part of it. The other part, really quickly, that the Grow Michigan Together Council recommended was also to keep more of the students from out of state or international students here. The concept is, if they're an international student, staple a green card to their diploma. We have tremendous amounts of talent. There's an influx of talent into these institutions. We want more of them to stay. And so, and I tell you, the business leaders of Michigan is on top of this. I mean, they were focused on education, and they've done a great job with that, and that's a lot of you guys here. But we've spent the past several months really thinking strategically about how to enhance technology transfer and to build the innovation ecosystem. And that's from kindergarten all the way past graduation with an advanced degree.
We've got a few minutes left, and before we came on stage, we were just sort of talking about how things are right now on campuses and how campus life is. I don't need to tell you, it's a heated environment. And I'm curious how each of you are thinking right now in the moment that we're in, and thinking about free speech on campus, self-expression on campus, wanting campuses to be a place for students to be able to speak their mind and have opportunities, but also to make sure it feels inclusive for everyone. So I'd love to give each of you an opportunity to talk a little bit about how you're thinking right now about what it means to be in this very political environment on campus life. President Guskiewicz.
No, thank you. And it's been a lot of the conversation over the past few days here as I've talked to some of our alums and business leaders. They want to know what is it like on campus. And there's nothing more important than the safety and well-being of our campus community members, and been working really hard to make sure that that is in fact the case. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, activism on college campuses, this isn't something new. It's been going on for decades. I think if you go back and look at the over history, it probably in the 1930s, 40s is when this really picked up. And but it is a little different today. And over dinner last evening, we had a great conversation about this. And for me, it's about appreciating viewpoint diversity, modeling good civil discourse. That's what we're trying to do at Michigan State University. I'm really proud of the way in which some of our student leaders and faculty leaders from various backgrounds have come together to have difficult conversations around the issues. They don't always walk out of the room arm in arm having agreed with one another, but we have to do that. We need to bring, we're working on this institute for around public discourse. And that's what we need for a thriving democracy. We have to graduate students where we're modeling what civil discourse looks like. It's why I went out and spoke with the the protesters that were setting up an encampment on our campus, and I spent some time trying to understand what was important to them. And I learned what was important to them. They learned what was important to me as I'm thinking about the safety of the campus community. And we were able to move forward and allowed for a peaceful protest there. And but we also they allowed for a peaceful and respectful graduation ceremony that the class of 2024 deserved. And so this isn't going to be over anytime soon. So we have to continue the dialogue and ensure that viewpoint diversity is appreciated on our campuses. And as a leader of these campuses, we have to do everything possible to encourage that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that it's true that our campuses, especially Michigan and Ann Arbor, has been hotbed of activism for a long time. We're proud of that. And freedom of speech and expression is a critical cornerstone to what everything we stand for as a university. But things are a little bit different, I'd say, now for a variety of reasons. One is that the tension is between groups on campus, two groups on campus. And this is happening on all the campuses around the globe. The other problem is there are a lot of bad actors that are involved. We know that for sure. And so this is very complicated. It's more challenging than previous tense moments on campus. But it's up to us, not only on campus, but government, foundations, to come together to address the root causes of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. And we are at the University of Michigan focused this year on a year of democracy and civic engagement. But it's going to require more than what happens on our campuses. I think the art of civil discourse is a lost art. It's something that we used to have in our schools with debate clubs and things like that. We have to enforce that. We have to reinforce and support that in our schools, in addition to our institutions. We have to encourage our youth to get off of TikTok and social media and learn how to talk to each other. We do have to model it. We have to work together as a network, as a society, to address these issues. And we will rise to the occasion.
President Pescovitz.
We have a very diverse campus. 42% of our students are Pell Grant recipients, 36% are first generation, 26% are underrepresented minorities, and 16% are African Americans. And almost all of our students come from Oakland County, Macomb County, and Wayne County. And we have about 30% are Arab Americans and Muslim students. I'm a Jewish president. We have had no protests on our campus, and we had 6 commencements that were entirely peaceful. I wrote a piece in the Detroit News in November that essentially summarized my approach. Basically, I abide by 4 principles. Number 1, safety is critical in this situation, and it is the most important principle. Second, I'm a strong proponent of free speech, unless that speech crosses the line into unlawful harassment, violence, and one person's speech imposes on another's speech, and then it becomes improper. But finally, I also believe that I have a right to free speech too. And as a leader of the institution, even though people have a right to say hateful things, I have a responsibility and a right to condemn speech that is hateful. And I have an obligation to speak against it. Mm-hmm. And it's important for me to speak up when speech is hateful. Mm. And therefore, I feel that I must speak forcefully. And I believe that having done that, when it begins to become hateful, and I have done that, has helped to keep the temperature down on my campus.
And President Pink, we're going to end with you. You've got about 30 seconds. Your final message to these folks.
Yeah. Institutions of higher education should always be, and have been for so long, one of those spaces where civil discourse ought to be able to happen. We ought to always have that avenue for folks to be able to come together in a civil manner and discuss and talk about and disagree and have all the things that happen, then get up and go to the cafeteria and have dinner together as students. That's what happened at Ferris State when this first started. We had 2 groups that protested, and then many of them decided after it was over with, they went to the quad, out of the quad to to the Quad Cafe and had dinner together. Civil discourse. We have to have that space where we have that happen in a great way. To a person on this stage, that number one thing that we are always focused on is safety on our campus. Nothing good happens on our campus. Learning can't happen well if our students don't feel safe. That combination of that for us is paramount, and that's what the focus has been. I know beyond these protests, that's what our focus always has to be.
Okay. Thank you, you four, for the time and for the thoughts and bridging this future together. Thank you.